Dragons of Autumn Twilight. This is a book I've been meaning to get to for a while, and eventually I broke down and I partially read it and partially listened to the audiobook of it. Um, Good book. But I do have thoughts, just general thoughts. This video is a stream of consciousness. It's something I'm doing while I'm tired after a long, hard day of work. If that's not your thing, then just leave the like and scootle on out here. But if you want to listen to me talk about dragons for a bit, well, let's talk about dragons. Firstly, there is something of a criticism that I have for it, and that is, boy, there are a lot of characters. Now, I don't mean that in terms of there are Lord of the Rings levels of Fellowship characters or some such, but there's a lot of characters that the story wants to focus on, whether it's Sturm, Tanis, Goldmoon, etc. It gets it hits a stride after leaving Solace and entering Zaxaroth, and I find then that the way the characters pair off with one another means they have more chance to sort of stand out and shine and do their thing. It's filled with a lot of really cool moments. There's a few very strange moments. And in fact, there's something springs to mind that I remember I wanted to say at the beginning, but I'll say it now. Dragons of Autumn Twilight, to me, is quintessential Dungeons and Dragons. It feels like I am reading through a campaign with one too many players. It feels like I'm reading through a campaign where 2 or 3 characters came in towards the end and one of them died off at the end. And to me, that is a massive plus. I love it because it is so reminiscent of the hobby that I enjoy. I suppose the best moment, and this is a spoiler, I realise this book is somewhat old, probably older than I am, somewhat of a spoiler. The coolest moment in this book comes in the second half, where I believe they're in the tomb of Kith Cannon. I might be misremembering. I actually finished this over Christmas, and I'm just now getting to talking about it. And there's this giant slug monster that comes in to the chamber that the party is at current exploring. This giant slug monster has thick rubbery hide, and it is proving resistant to all but the most stout of strikes. I think Sturm was able to harm it. I don't think anyone else was. Tanis' arrows bounce off it. It hits him with acid, melts part of his arm and sword, and Goldmoon comes up to heal him. And as he does so, as she does that, he draws his bow, and he's got Lorana and her behind him, and he's firing and backing up onto the dais on which sits the corpse of Kith Cannon. And he reaches back behind him, desperately trying to find something to fight off this slug with. And the dead Elf King Kith Cannon gives him the magical sword, the Worm Slayer. And that is able to drive the slug back, which is an awesome moment. An awesome moment. Especially afterwards when they realise, hold on, where did you get that sword from, Tanis? He gave it to me. It was really cool moment. Really like that a lot. I especially like how the Kender, Tasselhoff, he went back to get the scabbard for Tanis. I like that very much so. In fact, Kender is something I will touch on. I love them. People are often complaining online. This is my first foray into Dragonlance. They're often complaining online that Kender are annoying and Kender are this and Kender are that. I found Tasselhoff not only endearing, but a genuinely alien species. That lack of fear or of ownership and just this all-abiding curiosity I really liked. I especially liked what I thought was sort of a Tolkienian message in Tasselhoff of Kender doing the small things that add up to big things. Very much got a Hobbit vibe from that, and I enjoyed it immensely. Now, Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman have really crafted something special. I look forward to getting into the second book as and when I get some rather traumatic work periods out of the way at the moment. I suppose if I had to point out one of the stranger moments that I didn't quite understand why it was there, save for Tasselhoff and Flint to get some time as stars of the show, as the non-humans of the group, I suppose it would be the Wicker Dragon. I don't really understand why the Wicker Dragon was a thing. I liked the scene. I found it entertaining. And I especially loved how Cameron was just there, ready to fight this dragon, thinking it was real at the time. I enjoyed that immensely. I loved having to sort of watch the party figure a way to get the Kenda out of this wicker dragon without killing him. I especially liked the top knot bit of character, bit of sort of world building for Kendas there. The Hoopak staff, by the way, is fantastic because that really reminds me of sort of British or medieval English quarterstaff fighting. But of course, it is a Dragonlance book, and therefore there are indeed dragons. Several dragons, but three of which are named. There's Onyxia, Pyros, and Flamestrike, who I can't remember the proper name of. Is it Onyxia, or am I just getting World of Warcraft out of that? The Black Dragon at the beginning. I might be misremembering that terribly. The fight where she bursts out of the well of Zaxaroth to attack the party all at once, nearly killing Riverwind, was something I stole. Margaret, I do intend to send you this video. I hope you don't mind me saying that I stole your dragon fight. My party recently were adventuring in the High Moor and Forgotten Realms twisted setting. It's kind of my version of it. And they came across sort of a swampy area to it where there was a black dragon fight, and I had the black dragon cast darkness upon itself, so that when it went into melee, everyone else was fighting with the disadvantage of being blind, but it, being used to fighting blind, had the advantage. It also melted the cleric, but unlike Riverwind, the cleric wasn't so lucky. He died horribly. Anyway, loved that scene. I loved the whole idea of the constellations disappearing as the two main gods came down to Kryn. Tiamat, I suppose, and I would call him Bahamut, but Paladin, I suppose, is the name for the Dragonlance version. I will say I've had a few spoilers, and I'm going to try and avoid reading comments on this video, as there are going to be spoilers. But knowing that certain events are coming is nerve-wracking enough for me to want to know how they come about. Good Lord, I had a lot of fun with this book. In fact, I'm a massive Legend of Drizzt fan, but this book comes across as so much more Dungeons and Dragons than the Legend of Drizzt, and I suppose I mean that in terms of the events that take place, because they're fighting draconians and hobgoblins, and then there is a giant slug, and then it's a dragon, and then it's a drow banshee, which was a fantastic encounter. I love the way that it felt as if they were going through dungeons. Fizban is a fantastic character, really enjoyed him. The whole betrayal subplot at the end of the book between Gilthanas, Raistlin, and Eben was actually quite well done. I could sort of see where it was going, but I think that comes from prior knowledge of the setting, what little prior knowledge I have. But the crafting of it, where it could be anyone betraying them to Pyros, was quite good. Now, we're getting on to 10 minutes. I want to talk about one character in particular that I loved. The best character of this entire book. You might think I'll say Tanis, because I like my half-elves, Ranger's my favourite class, and he got a cool magic sword in one of the best moments in this book. The best character, in my humble opinion, is Raistlin. And that's not just because he's wearing red, which is my favourite colour. Raistlin really came across in the first part of this. I mean, he introduces himself in a weird way, which kind of raises red flags for me. But the way he treats Bupu, I think that's how you pronounce it, in Zaxaroth, the way he sort of protects her and sends her off is incredible. I especially loved, and this is my second favorite moment, I especially loved the moment on the altar where he is going to basically sacrifice himself by casting a spell to save the rest of the party. I especially love how he's desperately trying to find this magic tome that is supposed to be in the dragon's hoard. Can't find it, and when the city floods, he thinks it's gone forever until Bupu pulls it out of her bag. He thinks it's going to be another natural remedy of some gross concoction or other, and it's actually this magical spell book. And the way he clings to it and sort of feels gratitude to this gully dwarf is it's really quite lovely. It was sort of a moment where you see through Raislin's tortured exterior, his really hard carapace, to what is just a bookworm beneath. The child that stayed in studying while Sturm and Cameron were out playing with sticks, he stayed in studying. And you sort of get a glimpse back to that little boy that loved books. And then for the rest of the book as well, everyone's always distrustful of Raislin. But Raislin comes through again and again and again, proving himself to be an asset to the party, especially an asset to Tanis. The final fight didn't go so well for him against the Dragon High Lord, but oh well, we shan't worry about that. The ending is somewhat bittersweet. I loved the ending of the marriage ceremony for Goldmoon and Riverwind. But it was tainted by Raislin's words, funnily enough. And I think I sort of felt like Tasselhoff at the end, where he's eavesdropping on Tanis and Raislin. And he wishes he hadn't eavesdropped on that conversation. And I think I understand. I think that's how I would feel. Anyway, I've ranted or spoken about how much I enjoyed this book. I'm going to get on to the second one probably at the end of the month. I've got a lot on at the moment. Please don't put any spoilers down for me. I do know a few things that are coming that I'd rather not. But I do thank you for watching. And if this has been a little edifying, then do consider giving me a like and a subscribe or sharing the video. It really does help. Thank you. Good night.